Hello everyone, in this video we're going to perform some more advanced mathematical computations. In particular, we're going to compute loan repayments. So we're going to obtain the duration, the amount of the loan, and the interest rate for the loan from the console. So we're going to get that from the user, from the keyboard. We're going to store this data using different data types depending on what we need. So once we have that, we're going to perform multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction on this data to work out what the repayments are. And we're also going to look at the math class for performing more advanced mathematical computations. So let's jump into Eclipse. Let's create a new Java project, and I'm going to call this 02.2 compute loan. Again, you can call this whatever you like. And the defaults here are fine. And we'll also create a new class. And this will also be called compute loan. Now, we'll get Eclipse to create a main method for us. That's very nice of it. And right now, I will just maximize this to get everything else out the way. Now, we're going to be obtaining input from the user using the keyboard. So we're going to get data from the console. We need to import scanner to be able to do this. So import java.util.scanner. And we'll come down to the main method, and I'll just delete this comment that Eclipse has put in for us, because we're going to be putting in our own comments that are actually meaningful. So the first thing we're going to do is create a scanner object. So scanner, and we're going to assign it to the variable input equals new scanner. And we're going to be reading from the keyboard, so system.in. Okay. The next step is to get all the data we need from the user, and we're going to start by getting the yearly interest rate. So obtain yearly interest rate. And we better tell the user what we actually want from them. So system.out.println enter yearly interest rate. For example, 8.25. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to use print line. Again, I want the value that they enter to appear right here at the end of this line. So just system.out.print for now. Now, what we've done here is ask them what we need and also the format that we want it. We want to have an interest rate as a yearly percentage, but we don't want them to put the percent sign on the end of the line. We only want the number. So that's why I put that example there. Now we can read this in, and we're going to store it as a double. Because we have a decimal place here, we need to either use a float or a double. So, because they store decimal places for us. And in this video, we're going to use a double. Oh, I can type. And we're going to call this annual interest rate. And we're going to read this from our input. So input.next double. Okay, now that we've got the yearly interest rate, we can automatically compute the monthly interest rate by ourselves. So, obtain monthly. And this will also be stored as a double. Annual interest rate divided by 1200. So this is how we're computing the monthly interest rate. We're taking the yearly interest rate and dividing it by this. Now that we have that, let's get the duration of the loan. So, obtain number of years, system.out.print. Again, we're going to tell the user what we want from them. So, enter number of years as an integer. For example, 5. So in this case, we only want to deal with whole years, not parts of years. So we don't care about any decimal places, which means we can store this as an int. So integer types don't have a decimal place, they're just a number. So we're going to store this as an int. Number of years equals input.nextInt. So we're going to read an int from the input using scanner. Finally, we better get the loan amount, how much they're actually borrowing. So, obtain loan amount out.print again. Tell them what we need so the user doesn't get frustrated. Enter loan amount for example. So again, we're dealing with decimal places here. And because of that, we're also going to store the loan amount as a double. So double loan amount. And again, we're reading it from scanner input.next double. Autocomplete is really nice. So now that we have all this information, we have everything we need to be able to calculate the repayments. So the next step is in fact doing that. The first one we're going to calculate is the monthly repayment. And this is going to be stored as a double as well. So double monthly payment equals. Now this is going to be a fairly long mathematical expression, but we'll break it down as we go. So the first step is taking the loan amount, multiplying it by the monthly interest rate, and then dividing it by, and we're going to use parentheses to separate parts of our equation. Parentheses take precedence over other expressions. So what this means is anything we put in here is going to be evaluated before we evaluate this or this. So what are we putting in this parentheses? Well, we're going to start with 1, and then I'm going to jump onto a new line to keep things easy to see. So we're going from that we're going to subtract 1 divided by. Now what we want to do is use a special function called power. So this resides in the math class. So math.power, and it takes 2 arguments, so 2 parameters. Now we don't have to import math.power because the math class belongs to java.lang. So we don't need to import it. Now, if you're wondering how I got the name of this function, I don't just memorize everything. I use the Java documentation. So if you can get this on the net, it's browsable online. So what we're looking for is the math class. Here it is. And inside here, the math class has a method called power. And that's what we're using. Now, what does power do? Well, if we jump over here, math.power has the functionality of this. So power, and it takes 2 values. For now, let's call them x and y. So this math.power. What does it actually do? Well, if we were writing this down as a mathematical expression, it would look like this. It takes the first number and raises it to the power of the second number. So, in fact, it looks like this. X to the power of y. Now, if we wanted to plug some real examples into this, we could have, let's say, 2 for x and, I don't know, 8 for y. This has the effect of being 2 to the power of 8, which we know equals 256. So that's what math.power does. It takes one number and raises it to the power of another number. So let's jump back to our code now. And what we're going to put in here is this. The first argument is going to be 1 plus the monthly interest rate. And the second argument is going to be the number of years multiplied by 12. So that closes off the parameter list to math.power, and we need a closing parenthesis because I had deleted it before to this. And that's how we calculate the monthly repayment. Now, this is not immediately obvious, but every one of these operators here, the multiplication, the division, and the subtraction, and this function call all have, this method call, all have precedence, the order in which the Java virtual machine will execute them. And it works basically exactly how it does for math. So if we look at this, you can think about this. So the parentheses get executed first. And multiplication and division are basically executed left to right. They have the same precedence. So we have loan amount multiplied by monthly interest rate multiplied by whatever is in these parentheses here. But the thing that might not be immediately obvious is that we have 1 multiplied by 1 divided by this. So you could be thinking 1 minus 1, that equals 0 divided by whatever this is. That means it's 0 divided by this, which is going to be 0. If you're thinking about that, don't worry too much, but that's not how it works. So the division operator has precedence over the subtraction operator. So it's like we had a set of parentheses in here, like this. So 1 minus all of this, because of the division gets executed first. And if you're ever unsure about what is going to be executed first, just put parentheses there so you know it's exactly what you're expecting. It makes life a bit easier. But for now, we know that division gets executed before this, so we can just continue. Okay, so we've calculated the monthly repayment. Now let's calculate the total repayment. So over the whole time frame of the loan, how much is the user going to pay? So double total payment equals, and it's going to be the monthly payment multiplied by the number of years multiplied by 12. Okay, and we've calculated everything we need to. So now let's print this information out to the console. So system.out.println, this time the monthly payment is, and again we're going to do string concatenation. So what we're going to do here is something a bit interesting. Oops. We're going to take the monthly repayment, multiply it by 100, and then divide it by 100 again, and then typecast it to an int. So let's try this. Int. So we're doing a typecast to an int. Monthly divided by 100.0. Okay. And we'll do a similar thing for the total payment. So actually, I might just no, I won't. I'll type it out. System.out.println the total payment is, and again, string concatenation int. So typecast total payment multiply by 100 divided by 100.0. Now what this is doing here is we're taking this, multiplying it by 100, and then typecasting it to an int. Now what typecasting it to an int does is get rid of the decimal place. So we're multiplying this by 100, typecasting it to an int to get rid of any decimal places, and then dividing it by 100. Why do we want to do that? Well, it's because we only want the answer in dollars and cents. So let's imagine that this calculation ended up being, I don't know, let's just pick a number, 123.12579. Okay, so we don't really care about all of this. We only want dollars and cents. So we're multiplying it by 100. So we end up with 12312.579. And then we're typecasting it to an int, which has the effect of getting rid of this. So we lose the decimal place as soon as we typecast it to an int. We're then dividing it by 100.0, which is, because we've specified a decimal place here, it means it's a floating point number. Well, it'll be a double. So that results in getting the final result will be 123.12. So what we did was we got rid of these unwanted decimal places by multiplying it by 100, casting it to an int, and then dividing it again. So we get a nicer output. And we did the same for total payment. So that is the total program for computing the loan. So let's put this back and run this program now. So run as Java application. So it's asking us for the yearly interest rate, and it's giving us an example. In this case, we're going to enter 5.75 and hit enter. Now it's asking for the number of years, for example, 5. and we are going to enter 15, so a longer loan. Entering the loan amount, well, our loan is going to be for, let's make it an even number, $250,000. And then here's the result. So if we have a loan for $250,000 and a duration of 15 years and a yearly interest rate of 5.75%, the monthly repayment would be $2,076.02. Notice how we got rid of any unwanted decimal places here using the typecast. And the total payment is, whoa, $373,684.53. But the program works, and we've done some fairly complex mathematical computations. So just to summarize, we used the int type for values where we didn't want a decimal place, and we could typecast to an int to get rid of a decimal place in a value. We use double or floating point types. In this program, we use doubles for numbers where we need the decimal places. And remember that the math class contains more advanced operations, and in this example, we used math.power to raise a number to the power of another number. And finally, remember that you should always use parentheses if you're unsure of the precedence and you want to guarantee how something's going to execute. So that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.